So you are in a Jupyter notebook. This Jupyter notebook we need to open. Opening a IPython notebook or a Jupyter notebook can be in two ways. So if you open in a VS Code, in VS Code extension should open it. If in some way this is not working, again we can reload that extension or delete and open it. But there is another way also doing. If you navigate to the directory, that's the best way, so that you will have less confusion. So in the directory I have my files. Now I need to open it. For opening it, we need to have a Jupyter notebook. So first we need to install pip install IPython -u means, so if it is already installed, upgrade it. So IPython and Jupyter for the current user. If you write this one statement, if IPython is not there, it will install. And if some of the packages are like lesser versions, it will upgrade it. See here, some of them it is upgrading. Now, you locally have if you see, a Jupyter notebook file. How do you open? There is something called as notebook. It says, I don't know what is notebook. Python-m notebook. If I do, hey, there is a Python module called as notebook. With that, it will open. Now it will open a local server for this thing. If you want to open it, so I click on it, it is opening in a new tab. Means locally it has created a one and we can work. So sometimes it will automatically connect, but it is in a VS Code environment. It is asking for the password or token. So whenever it is generating, then itself it will generate the token also. I can select it and paste it. If you do locally, it won't even ask you that. Okay, it is asking to set up a new token and a password. Something like 1234. 1234 something. It is saying what? Invalid token or password. I think I gave the token correctly. So this token, whichever is coming, I need to copy. Maybe like I will take a new page here so that I will see what I'm typing. So I got everything correctly, right? Okay, perfectly I wrote. I'm taking this token and I'm pasting it. Generally, this much struggle is not needed. If you are working in a local system, everything will be in a single place. So, and after that, there is already a file. If you want to open a new file, so everything, this is a proper structure, a new text file, folder, terminal, or like a Jupyter. So if you have a Jupyter notebook also, you can open it. So that is how we can create a local environment. This is the actual story of working with Jupyter notebooks. But this VS Code came up with some extension to work inline. So not every features of this Jupyter notebook are supported here. In real world, so you will have a Jupyter hub where it will be like a web server which will be running, hosting all these Jupyter notebooks. So you see the things, font and everything are much more visible. And also you can move the cells up and down also, which is not there in a VS Code extension. So if you see here, what I should tell. So any Jupyter notebook, you can run all of them, or you can clear the output also. Means I am restarting and I am clearing out. Means this kernel will be restarted and it will be doing. So you are telling your kernel to restart. So I'm in a remote system, right? So not sure how it will react to it. I'm just reloading. And now I think kernel got an error. So it is saying no kernel found. Let's see how it works. If I say this one, see here. So the same process, shift and enter, the same thing. What is this collections module? Collections is like, till now we know what list, tuple, set and dictionary are the collections. Then what is this module, sir? To work on these collections, we have these things. What is that we can do? If you see the DAR, you can see a list of things. The most important thing in collections we generally used earlier before 3.6 is OrderedDict. Earlier, the order of the dictionary is not maintained. So for that, I used to work on it. But nowadays, everyone is not using it because dictionaries are retaining the order. But still, there were a lot of other options. If you remember, we already worked on namedtuple. When we were working with tuples, I told. Generally, tuples, we can index based upon their position. But if you want to index them, so based upon this, so in that case, we need to work. So if you got the help, DAR will just give the list of attributes, whereas help will give the entire documentation. So entire documentation, what we can do, everything in one place. Now, first, if you go for the collections.counter, what is this counter doing? It's a very interesting operation. So if you give some values, till now, if you have some numbers, you can ask how many times the values are there, what is the total count and everything. So, but like if you want each value, how many times it is coming. So this is a literal way of doing. Means if you have some values, and if you want to know how many times A is occurring, how many times B is occurring, how many times C is occurring, you need to create a dictionary, and every form for that particular character, we need to go at the existing value and increment by 1. So instead of you doing this much code, you can just pass to collections.counter. If you pass a list of values, list or a tuple or even a string, if you pass, so then it will create this one. So don't pass a set, because set will by default give a unique values. Then you will get everything will be unique. So that's what. If you have a string right now, so similarly for string also, if you want to take each character how many times it is occurring, you need to do literally this program. Hope you remember this program we already did during frequency analysis. So similarly, if you pass this collection.counter to it, did you see? You got a beautiful dictionary containing each of the key and how many times it is occurring. In the same fashion, if you already have a dictionary, then if you pass that also, you'll get a dictionary again. And if you pass the loose values like this, it will create a dictionary out of it. Similarly, not only this, if you have a list of tuples, a tuple of tuple to be precise. So in this tuple of tuples, what we can do is I have some values here. Yesho, yellow, so Ali, blue. So like that, I have many things. So whereas here, if you see, if you want to get the pass these things, I cannot just pass this one. I need to specify. See here, if I pass the entire things, what it is saying, it is taking the entire value as a single entity and telling that each one is occurring one time. Observe carefully. But that is not our expectations. How many times Yeshob is occurring? How many times Yeshob is occurring twice? So, yellow is coming twice. So red is coming twice. Means individually there are things. In that case, you pass on only the keys, only the names or only the things. Like that if you pass. So, okay, each name, how many times it is occurring. Or like if you pass only the colors, it will tell each color how many. Means there is a limitation for it also that you should be aware. Next, going further, if you see collections.counter, till now, the existing dictionaries or list or any iterables you are passing. In the same fashion, you can also create an empty counter. Then for that, every time you can pass values. Means update. Every time when updating, so existing values will be updated. Means let's say initially, so it is 0. Assume everything is 0, right? No keys. So I have some keys, it got some values. After that, I told A should be 1, D should be 5. Generally, for an ordinary dictionary, if you do a dot update, the latest value will overwrite. But in this case, the existing value of A is what? 3. Now you are telling A is equal to 4. Then did you see this 3 plus 4, it becomes 4 now. 3 plus 1 becomes 4. So this is not like an ordinary dictionary, slightly different. In an ordinary dictionary, dict.update means this latest value will come. Whereas here, the values will be added. And not only this, did you observe one thing? This counter, every time when it is giving, so whichever is having the highest values, that it is coming the highest. It will come in an alphanumeric order. You see? So in terms of occurrence, Yeshob came twice. Then Ali came twice. So means highest, next to lowest, like that. So in this case also, see, observe carefully. A is having highest values. So A came first, then B, then C, then D. Now once you did this update, D became 6, which is the highest. So that's why D came first, next A4, B2, C1, like that. In the same fashion, if you have some values, every time, so we get that collections counter. So same like an ordinary dictionary, we can also get for the keys, values, items, everything we can get from out of it. Same like keys, we can also ask elements also. This is extra operation from it. And here, if you say like, so character frequency analysis, hope you remember, I did this already. So we worked on a file and we did this one, right? So one assignment for you is like, I did a hard coding in my local system, how it working. But you need to work with the this system. So you need to modify this path to get the sys.executable prefix. Means this entire path should be an executable prefix. So till now, this highlighted part, it should be replaced. So you can use a pathlib to get the sys.prefix and you can pass. So it's a very small thing. So you can use like from pathlib. I think like I should not write. So from pathlib, import path, and you can create the Python path. So sys.executable, right? So sys.executable is the path. From that path, you need to pass. So how do you do? So you can pass this path to the pathlib. So you can say path of this one slash license.txt. So just the same lines what I'm telling right now, you need to do, but I am replacing it so that you will do afterwards. So it is a license file, which is a text file. It is having a lot of things. If I want to get the content, see what I am doing. I did a initial counter and I am reading the entire data and I'm passing the data to this counter. Means entire string of the entire file. Then after that, I understood for each of the character how many times it is occurring. Every time white space will be the most occurring, then followed by ovals, right? So E, T, so and so. So the beauty is that it is not only getting the each one how many times. There is one thing called as most common. Okay, if you ask counter, it gives these many values. But in that most common 5 means, I wrote most common 5 means the top 5 occurring. So it will say like most common 5 means the top 5 occurring characters and how many times they are occurring. So like that also we can get. So next after this, so using this collections.counter, so we can take like any two operations and we can do operations. Generally, we cannot add two dictionaries, if you remember or not. We cannot do dictionary concatenation. But like for a collections.counters, we can do concatenation. We can add. If you add that, if one has a some keys and the other has some other keys, it will add both the keys. But if the same keys is there, it will try to add the values. If you see a simple example, A has 2 here, A has 2 here. But in the output, A has a 4. So that is what. These operations are slightly different compared to the thing. In the same fashion, we can do subtraction also. Means from A1, what are is there common between B and B?
Excuse me, sir. Sorry for interrupting. Can you repeat it again?
Yes, please.
Combined quotes.
Sure. If
I
you
did
see,
not get.
okay, sure. So the addition, if you see, addition, this is addition, right? So in addition, first initially I'm taking the C1 counter and C2 counter. In C1, how many are there for A? 2. For C2, how many are there for A? 2. Now, if you add these two in the result, did you see A has a 4? Means if the same key is present in both of them, its values will be added. In the same fashion, see here, B how many are having? 3. B how many it is having? 1. So when you are adding both, 3 plus 1 means what? 4. That's the reason B got 4. So like that, every value will be added. If let's say now take the value of C. C is 1 here, but is there C anywhere in the second counter? No. So then it came as it is. Means if something is not there in another one, it will come as it is. But if the same key is present in both, the values will be added. In the same fashion for subtraction, the vice versa happens. Means from the C1, we need to take the commons. So this is C1, right? In this C1, so what is common between C1 and C2? So let's say that take the B. So B is present here also. B is 1 and here B is 3. So 3 minus 1 is what? 2. That's why you got B2. Similarly, A is 2 here, A is 2 here. Subtracted. So you get no A right here in the output. Similarly, C is 1 here. So is there C anywhere here? No. So as it is. Now did you understand? Addition means
Yes.
combining all of them. Subtraction means from the first value, removing the common values between A and B. So it means the first and second, like that. In the same fashion, this is intersection, this one. Whereas intersection means whichever is the minimum values which are present in both. So in A and B, A is coming 2 times, right? And in is there C between both? No. How many times B is present in first one? 3 times. How many times second time? B is present 1. Means what is the common between? So B occurring 1 time is common in between both, right? So B is occurring 3 times here, B is occurring 1 time here. So minimum how many times both has 1 time. So what is that which is common between both? That is the intersection. Whereas union means you understood. Union means combining of all the things. But union will not do the addition. The difference between union and addition is that in union, so you see here, if A is present twice, you see here in union, in the first one also A is twice, second one also A is twice. So whereas when you do addition, A became what? 4 times because values were added. Whereas in the second one, you see here, so A is coming twice only. Means no, the common values, it's treating like a set operations will happen. That you should be aware. And similarly, in the collections, we have one more thing called as default dict. What is this default dict doing means? It will do like a operation means you have these entire things, right? So earlier also we have seen, if you pass to Collections.Counter, it will give each of the element how many times it is occurring. But if you want to do the operations on your own, so you need to do like this. Hope you remember, this is what we have done, right? So every time we do a dictionary operation, don't you remember the same operation we do? We take the existing value. For that existing value, you append something. That is what every time you're doing, right? But in this process, we need to do one thing I told. First, we need to set the value, set the default value, and then do the operations. That's what we know. Means every time, for the first time you're accessing, we should ensure that the key is present. That is what this set default does. Sorry, default dictable does. What is this default dict means? They observed one pattern that every time when you create these kind of structures, the key will be something, but value will be a list of values. Value will be a set of values like that. So they decided that collections.defaultdict of list means it will create a dictionary. Now, did you see the signature? It is saying that it's a dictionary with list and dictionary like this. Means that now, did you see? I didn't even check whether this key is present or not. If you make it like an ordinary dictionary, did you see in an ordinary dictionary, if you refer for any key without it presenting, then it will automatically throw an error, right? Whereas here, it will not throw any error. Means the moment you access any key, automatically value will be created. What is the value? You told a list. So that's why value will be list. If it is a list, I can directly append, right? I need not do this much operations of set default of this key commas empty list and do. So that is the beauty of default dict. So now you see in the values, did you see? The key is the string and value is a list. Sometimes the key is occurring twice. Did you see values occur twice? In counter, we are just calculating the how many times it is occurring. But we are not getting a data structure of combined, right? Group data structure if you want, you need to go to this. Similarly, in this case, I am defining set default of set, default dict of set. For a set, we can do an add instead of append. Now, did you see the values came like this? Dictionary of key is equal to string, value is a set. In the same fashion, if you want to work like a collections.counter, then we can do what? Default dict of int. So every time when the same value comes, you just increment the value. That's it. Now, don't you think it is working exactly like collections.counter? So see here, I wrote collections.counter also. You got the same answer. So default dict we can use with a list or a set or an integer. So can't we use a tuple? You can use, but a tuple means you cannot append the values, right? Afterwards, you cannot modify it. So that's why they don't go for like immutables. Only for mutables are int. Similarly, if I do a default dict of float, so all the values will come as float. That's it. So similarly, so I can do like a default dict of int. If you want like a case insensitive, all these operations, whatever I have. So the point is, the moment you define like a default dict, you need not worry whether the key is already defined or not. Irrespectively, you just access it. If it is not present, it will create it. And the next more important point in the collections is the deques. This is very interesting. Till now, you know what? You worked with a list, you worked with a set, all these things. Let's take the example of a list. In a list, what we can do? We can use an append operation or an extend operation. You know the difference between append and extend. But what they can do? They can add only in the right direction, right? Means at the end we can add. Similarly, we can use a insert also, but insert can add at any particular position. You give any position, it can add. At the 0th position we can add, or like any position we can add. So till now we know this one. Whereas this one is slightly different, deque. Deque will create a new data structure like a list in such a way that we can append in both directions. Means in the left side or right side also we can append, and the left side also we can append. So generally pop means what? You remove only at the right side, right? But you can remove from both directions, left side and right side also. So means inserting also left and right. So deleting also left and right. Any operations you can do like this. So you see, first I created a deque. So and for that I did an append. This is a general operation like a list. Did you see value was added at the last? So in the same fashion I can do append left of 6. Now did you see value came in the left? And similarly, if I do a pop, pop means removing the value in the right direction. In the last value was removed, right? Whereas I can do pop left also, removing the last value from the left direction. Means 0th value, right? In the same fashion, the count of 3 in deque. So how we do like a count in a list? In the same fashion, we can do here also. How many times a particular element is present? Similarly, we can do a remove operation like in a list. That like, so the first occurrence from left to right, it will delete. In the same fashion, I can extend. Extend means what? It will take a mutable object. So, any iterable object, but add to the last. You see now that like, till now, like an ordinary list, if you see, we can extend. Extend means what? It will take iterables, but it will add in the last in the same dimension. In the same fashion, we can do extend left also. Means it will take the values add in the reverse direction in the left side. So the 7 was added first, then 8, then 9, like that in reverse order. So in similarly, not only the ordinary list operations, we can do another's also, like rotate. Means if I do a rotate by 3, it's very interesting. The values will be shifting their position by 3 positions. Means if I have these values like this, so I will shift by 3 positions to the left. Means in the first iteration, I am like this. And in the second iteration, I will take one value. This is rotation means. If I say rotate of 1, so this value will go and place in the last. And in the second, so it is like one rotation. And so if I do the same thing again, it will do. This is the second iteration. And if I go for the next one, that is 7, it will add. So this is like 3 iterations. The first iteration, second iteration, third iteration means like rotate. So by 3 rotations, did you see you got the values like this? Means it just imagine like a wheel you are rotating. The last value, first value will come to the last. Sir, why every first time value is coming to the last? Why can't the last value come to the first? Because you did a rotate of -3. Similarly, you try a rotate of +3. Then it will do in the other direction. So similarly, if you see the reverse, if the reverse was done, even in a list also, right, when you do a reverse operation, it won't give anything. As it is an attribute, you need to ask afterwards. Now, did you see the same values were reversed? Reversing is different, right? So the positions will be reversed like a mirror. In the same fashion, I'm asking the 4 to 10 means like you are asking that index to print the first occurrence of 4 between so 2 and 10. This is how you do the same index in a list also. If I do like a 4 comma 3, so means at the fourth position you want to insert 3. So you are inserted. So insert operation works as it is. For insert, there is no point of doing left or right because you give the exact position. So like that, an ordinary list can be modified. So for a tuple, they modified tuple with Collections.Counter and defaultDict. For a list, they have given this DQ. Similarly, for tuples, they came up with namedtuple. Namedtuple means, so ordinary tuple means what? You have values. If you want to index, you index based upon the position, like 0th value, first value, second value, like that. But if you want to get the values by the position, so for that we need to define a namedtuple. So in namedtuple, the one point you need to remember is, so whenever you're creating a namedtuple, first like a structure we need to create, like a blueprint. For that blueprint, you need to pass all the values. So assume that you have a tuple containing 3 values only, name, age, gender. So for that, either you can pass the highlighted value like a list of 3 values or within a string, space separated. Because if you pass like this, it will do a dot split in the backend if it is a string. So like this also you can pass, like a string also you can pass. But the name which is there here and outside, it should be the same. It may be a weird requirement, but this is how the blueprint name should be. Okay, then if you ask the type, it says it's of type, that's it. And you need to pass your values, like a individual key equal to value like that also, or like a tuple also you can pass. If you pass the values to it, so then it will create a named tuple. So when you ask, it says like this. So when it became a named tuple, instead of doing by the position, you can do with the name also. Means a named tuple also can be addressed with an ordinary way, at the same time with position. In general, if you have like a 2 or a 3, it's fine. But what if you have like more? That's where the problem comes. And also, when you're creating a named tuple, ensure that the named tuple has a field names which are not the built-in keywords. You cannot have something like a class because it's a keyword. So similarly, so whenever you have a anything, you see here, you pass the key. Sometimes we will have a names which are similar to the keywords, right? In that case, what should I do? In that case, if I say rename equal to true, then did you see, as this is not a valid, class is not valid, it has renamed as _1. Means why _1? Why not _2? Because it is at position 1. So like that, you give anything. See here, in this case, age was repeated twice. So when you have a duplicate key also, it will throw an error. So, and if I say rename, whenever there is an issue, then it will say _name, _ the index position. Similarly, you give anything, it can create like that. So that is how the name tuple works. So hope now you have enjoyed. So in the same fashion for dictionaries, they created OrderedDict, but it is of no use. Means earlier the dictionaries used to not retain the order in which you give. It's not ascending or descending. The order means like first you give banana, next apple, next peach, next orange. It should come in that order only, right? You see, it is coming in that order only. From 3.6 onwards, it is retained in the order. So now OrderedDict didn't have any more significance. So earlier it used to have it. That's why I quote like, this one. So assert saying like if you create an ordinary dictionary or like collections.orderedict, both are exactly same. This is all about the collections module. So further, like in collections, so you have one more module that is onto the mainly atexit. It's a very small module, but I thought like you will need it. So whenever you're working atexit. So by the name itself, it is saying atexit. You should call like atexit. What is the purpose of this module called as atexit? Let me show you very interesting thing. So atexit means at exit it does something. Means if you want something to be executed when something is exiting, so that is where you use the atexit function. So what is this atexit? In which case I need to use it? So let's see. I think I already opened a Jupyter notebook in this terminal. So I'm opening a new terminal so that I can run this .py file. So what I can do here, say I have one function, say hello world, define hello. I will say like print hello world. It's a small function, right? If I make a call, it will work. So to run this function, I can take the copy path. CD, navigate to that directory. So clear the screen. So Python 01 so and so. It's a typical hello world. And also, the best practice, right? Every time when you're writing, the function should be in the top, but call should be under this __ name is equal to main. I told that such that if someone in future want to reuse your code, so they need not modify your code. Your code is ready to be importable, right? So when you execute directly, it makes no difference. Now, what is that I want to do? So there is something like atexit. So this atexit module I will import. Atexit. This module is coming built in. So what is this module do? If you want to know more, I do like a DAR of this atexit. If I do a clear screen and Python 01, did you see the list of attributes? You can see the noisy things, but most common thing you can see register and unregister. What is this register? What is unregister? What it does? Maybe like I will register one function. So maybe like I will write something like all done. Another function I will write. So what is the purpose of this function? Whenever you are executing, it will say all done. Say means after the entire program was done, so your program this particular function should be running. So then I need to make a manual call to this function. Now did you see all done was executed? But if you have a scenario where you want to register it, instead of you calling it manually, you want to register it. So during the call itself, I will register it. That's saying that, hey, I am asking like this. Means what? Print registering. So register, and I am registered. Means like I am registering this function. So I need not call it again. I am like ignoring this also because we know this one. I am just making a call to the hello world. Now we see what will happen. So initially how the execution works from the top to bottom order. So when functions are coming, they will process it. So then like you have print statements, they are registering. Then it is registering like all done. After registering, did you see hello world was executed? And when your work was done, did you see what happened? Say like now I have one more function. So this time I have one more function called as addition or something. So I am making a call to this addition also. Say taking this addition and doing some operation. And I'm asking the result. Now you see what will happen. It is doing the process of registering and it is doing. But did you see what happened? After all these were done, so did you see this all done was done executed? Means if you want any time where your one function to be executed at the end of all things were done, then you can use the register at exit.register. Then what are the function you give? It will ensure that that is executed in the last. Assume like a cleanup or something. Whenever anything empty or anything is there, you want to remove all of that. You have some scenario, you can take it. Similarly, one more example I will give. With this, you will understand much better. See, okay, sir, I have registered. What if my module is doing some exception or something? Then in that case, it will be really, really useful. In ordinary cases, it may not be that useful. But like in this case, it would be very much useful. I will tell you what. Say, what if, can I register the same function multiple times? Observe carefully. I am registering three functions. Means the same function, my cleanup, and I am registering with three values, such that every time I pass the value, I can see that value. So this is how you pass an argument to these functions. Generally, function means you make a call, right? So you need to tell like, my cleanup off first you need to pass. So, but like when you're registering and if you want to pass, this is the way you need to pass. So now if I need to run this code, so clear and Python 02. Did you see what happened? I didn't have any other code, only my this cleanup function, and my registered at exit things. First I registered first, then second, then third. Then how they executed, the order in which they executed? Reverse order, right? Whichever was last registered, that was executed first. Whichever was first registered, that is executing like a last. So just imagine like you have a tiffin box, if you have chapatis. Whichever the chapati you placed first, so that you will eat last, right? So that is what. That is example of a stack. That is called as a LIFO, last in first out. Okay, sir. So in which case it will be helpful better. So assume that I raised an exception. Okay, I have an exception. I raised it. So maybe like, some message also I am passing. Now, sir, I have registered, but I got an exception. Generally, exception is coming means that is the last statement to execute. But if you have like at exit registered, after your exception was done also, your cleanup things will happen. Means whenever you have a DB connections or any important connections, all the connections can be released. So whether there is an exception or not, it works. Then one more question. What if this exception is present before registering? Then you can do nothing, right? So when the exception is occurring, that's the last statement. So that's why every time we should do these statements first in the starting of the code. Then like you do the other statements. Such that anything, if you want to register, this is how we can do. Okay, last edge case, where what if the code itself is having an exception? Assume that I wrote a code. You see here, I am registering a function, exit with exception. So I am making a call to this function itself. This function itself has an exception. Means I am registering twice. Now will it execute twice or it will stop at the first time it got? Python 03. Okay, 1 second, I think. Yeah. Now did you see what happened? So though you have registered first, registered second, did you see you got both the messages? Means even if there is an exception after their or like within their executions, so they will execute all the registered at exit functions. Hope you understood. So this is a very good cleanup function. When you are working in production, it would be very much handy. So that you should be aware. I think it is 09. Next. Next important small module that you should be aware is about, yeah, this one is very much important, which is a random module. Random module. What is this random module? In which case it can be better helpful. So with random module, we can do a lot of things. So let me create a random module. Say like random usage dot ipynb. Okay. So I need to open, it's not opening. But can I open with the previous one? No, because the previous Jupyter notebook you opened in a different directory, collections. So that's the reason it's the best practice to open at the highest level so that we can reuse better. You earlier opened at the 8th directory. So either you can open here at the any level better. Say like if I am starting the server again now. Now did you see? At the 10 modules level, I am starting the server. Now you see again a new server started. So that server you can see now. See, whichever the directory you started, it will show files in that directory only. You cannot go one level above to it. Say here, if I want to work on the random module, I opened it. So there is nothing in it. So I can open a new IPython kernel. It is saying what? There is some issue with this one. Okay, let me close. Let me close it. So anytime before you're closing, the best practice is used to do this save and checkpoint. If I do a save and checkpoint and close it, then I can assure that things are good. So it has one module. If I need to open now, it is saying what? So no boot doesn't appear as a JSON. Okay. So it has some problem with this Jupyter notebook. Maybe like I will delete permanently. So, but like I was there in this directory. And did you see it is creating a .ipynb checkpoints? Means it is like saving the file. So you can, whenever any file is there, for every 2 minutes or something, we can auto save, do that options. So I am trying to create again a Jupyter notebook. It is saying some issue. Let me close everything and start it fresh again. If it is a local, this much things will not happen. Whereas here, it need to go from this container to the outside, right? That's where the issue is coming. So now it is good. So where I want to start under the 10 modules, I want to start a new IPython kernel. Something is happening. So with this, so some issue is there. So with this Jupyter, it is having an issue. So leave it. So instead of wasting time, I can open in a ordinary .py random .py file. So in a random py file, I can show what is the purpose of random, why we need to use all this information. First, you need to be aware of one good thing. there is a difference between random and pseudo-random. In fact, when you are working with random, if I say like something is coming in random, means like you cannot predict what is that. Whereas pseudo-random means it may appear like a random, but we can predict it. So we are working on a pseudo-random number generator. There were different methods, algorithms for it. The most common, which is used across multiple languages these days, it's Python, Java, so even Go language, everyone using this one called as Mersenne-Twister algorithm. So this is an algorithm which everyone is using. If you have some time, just walk through this algorithm. Mersenne-Twister. This is a general purpose pseudo-random number generating algorithm, which is very widely used across multiple programming languages. You see here Python, Ruby, C language, everywhere we are used, right? So fine. And this is not designed for working with the cryptographic purposes. Means if you want to work on cryptography, there is another module called as secrets, which we need to work. So then like how to work on it first. If you want a random number, there are ways. So first, if you want to work on a random number, first we need to import random. Import random. Random.random. Random.random will give a random value between these two. If I say like 10, so and so, so clear and Python a so and so. Okay, somewhere it has created. Fine, did you see? So every time it gives a value, it will be very random enough. Every time you run, so it is a random value, but the value is between 0 and 1. But sir, you want a value between say like 1 to 10, 1 to 100. So if you that is the scenario, then instead of doing anything else, you can just multiply with 100. If you multiply with 100, it will give a value between that 0 and 10, 0 and 100. So like that, if you want any limit, so you can multiply like that. But if you want like a custom limit, there I want between 68 and 54, so like that limits, this cannot work. It is doing only 0 to 1. But if you want your customization, you can do. And also it cannot give you the integers. It can give only floating point values. But so there are other ways to do that. Before going further, I will tell you one thing. So generally for random number, there is no input, right? You every time ask, you get an output. Every time ask, you get an output. But can you predict what is the next occurrences? These next occurrences you cannot predict every time. Every time the value will be different. But can we predict it? Yes. If you want to predict the next occurrence, there is something called a seed. Random.seed. For random.seed, you can pass anything. So it only supports the seed types like none, int, float, string, byte, boolean like this. Means anything which is hashable and immutable. So individual elements, that only you can pass. So these all data types you can pass. I have verified. Then did you see after passing this specific number, I am telling that next three values will be like this. Now did you see when executed, did you exactly got the same numbers? Including the last value, everything is exactly same. If I execute 10 times or 20 times, any number of times, it will be in this order only. Means if this number is given, the next three occurrences will be like this. So if you see like some casinos and others, how they will manipulate the people. So though ordinary people think like, it is random, but they can predict what would be the next value, next 100 values, next 1000 values, like that. So, and similarly, if I can give a string, after giving this some random string, I have generated some three values. And did you see these three values will be exactly like this? Means like that, you can pass anything like that. And also, if you want to make it somewhat unpredictable, means you should give a very large value, which is kind of like very difficult to digest. So for that, I can take like the OS module. in OS module, there is something called as os.random. Means in OS module also there is something like random called as urand. Means it will create a string which is like very large. Did you see that it is giving a Unicode string of whatever the size you give? os.urand will give a Unicode string of size 1024 as you give. So now after giving this, if you ask the next occurrences, if I ask like next 3 or 10 or any number of occurrences, they will be exactly the same. Now did you see the next 3 occurrences are exactly like this? I think like 1024. Oh, did you see that these were changed? Means we are unable to predict, right? Okay, let me repeat again. Did you see again? So the values are unpredictable. Now we understood what we need to do. So within this concept of pseudo randomness, if you want to get a truly random number, you can pass this urand, because os.urand every time will give a new value. So you cannot predict the next values. So if you want kind of a rand, so you can to some extent use this. So you cannot predict the next 3 occurrences. You see, next 3 occurrences will not be predictable. So they are seems like nearby, we cannot predict them. So now we understood one problem. One problem was solved. How to get a random value, how to get a pseudo random number. It's fine. Now, sir, if I want to get a random integer, then how to work? If you want to work on a random integers or so and so, then we need to work the other way. I think I will remove this. Okay, if I take the second value, so see here, you already know how to work with the random numbers and all these things. So if I can focus on this, you'll understand that. Okay, I took a random number, random.randint. This is what is designed to get the random integers. As the name saying, if you see now, you got a value called as 31, which is between 1 and 100. If you give anything else, you can give like that. Similarly, if you want to take like say 35 and 55, 34 and like 56 I give. Now in this case, see here, I get a value which is like a 44, which is between these numbers. I can give anything like that. And also observe one point that this rand int is the only thing. Note this, very, very important. Till now, if you go for anything like a range or anything, slice also, it will go till the last value but doesn't include the last value. But in this case, even the upper bound also can occur. Means even 56 also can come. That is a fair chance. Okay, integers if you want, you can generate. But sir, in the previous, I generated a floating point values, right? With random.rand. Like this, can I generate a floating point values in a finite limit? So in that case, we can go for random.uniform. So uniform means, see, even the all bounds are inclusive. If I say 1 to 10, so it will give a floating point value between 1 to 10. The result will be a floating point value between 1 to 10. You can give, so like that you can get. And one more thing, sir, I want to generate some values, say like range I am taking. Range of some values. If let's say 0 and 101. So to a, this one, like a 5. If you generate this list range, then what will happen? It will generate these values. What if you want the values between this list? Means you want a random values, but that should be part of these values. Means 0, 5 like this. In that case, you need to go for something called as rand range. There is something called as a rand range. Till now, whatever the range you have, that range value you need to take rand range. And if you pass it, say I'm asking for get the 3 values out of it. So sometimes things can repeat also, right? It doesn't matter that same thing is coming. If I take like 5 times I want. So did you see? 5 times it is asking. Did you see 5 times it is asking? Sometimes it will be repetition, sometimes it will not. But you get the end values. Similarly, this is how you getting some random value. Okay. Somehow you are generating every time and you are getting a value out of it. What if you already have a list and you want to get from it? Say like, I have a list. Did you see I have a list of items? In this case, I have a list of items. From this, if I want to get one value, so then I can use a random.sample. Did you get a list of one value? Similarly, what if you want to pick 4 values or 5 values? I can tell that. If I do like this now, random.sample of items comma 4, it will pick like 4 elements right now. Means how many elements I say, those many elements from the given list. Let me give you one more example. So instead of a numbers, what if I have say like a mountains? You see here, it's a list of strings. From this list of strings, if you say random.sample of 1, now did you see? I got one random. So every time random.sample will give a list. And similarly, say like you are planning for a vacation, you want to take any of these mountains, you want 3 mountains. So I did random.sample of this comma 3, and you will get a list of 3 elements. But there will be one time where you want to pick only one every time. So sometimes if you want to pick 2, 3 or so and so, random.sample is good. But what if your intention is to pick only one element? For that they introduce random.choice. Random.sample will every time give a list. How many numbers you take, those many it will give. But random.choice means it will give every time one only. So what are the data type? It will give directly. Now did you see? So it is saying like Vindhya or something. It is a list. So whereas if you ask, so this will give a list of values. So that is the difference between random.sample and random.list. In the same fashion, if you want to shuffle some values, so there is a very good operation for it. So generally, if you were given some list of values and if you want to shuffle, you need to write a big function to do that. I wrote one manual function to help you understand. When you have free time, just walk through it. You'll understand. I'm shuffling the position every time for each other value. But instead of you doing that much hard work using a shuffler, so you can take a list of values and you can do a shuffle. So whenever you're playing any cards game, in fact, it works like this only. So whenever I wrote my logic, I got a problem. You see, my logic is not working properly. It is having some issue. So out of bounds issues came. Whereas I need not worry about that here. If I execute now, did you see? It is working perfectly. Means what are the values I have? Can be in like in a ascending or descending or any order I can have. It will just shuffle the order of the values. So that finally you will get in one order. So assume that based upon these things, let me create a small game. Like a tossing coin game. Tossing coin means if let's say there is a coin. So coin means what? Coin will have a head and a tail, right? Whenever you're flipping, it's a general fair chance that 50-50%, right? So if you want to take like how many times each one is occurring. So there are two occurrences, two types of. So for that I will try to do something. First I will try to import random. I know the two outcomes. For each of the outcomes I want to check. So I want to run this for like n number of times. Say 10,000 times I want to run. Every time I want to say, I want randomly one value. So between the given values. So only one value I want. So random.choice of, I can give like a heads and a tails, right? Heads and tails. If I pass, I will get like whatever the occurrence I got, I will get it. If you say clear and Python 03, did you see? Sometimes head, sometimes tail, sometimes head, sometimes tail, like that. If every time whatever the outcome is there, maybe like I will assign to an outcome. outcome, whatever is there. Instead of doing, I want to append here. Means like for this dictionary, I want to do. So can I tell like outcomes of outcome, so plus equal to 1? Means instead of doing all the values, it will finally give the total outcomes. So now if you see the outcome, did you see? Instead of running every time, you can see for each outcome how much it is. So to optimize further better, instead of you writing heads and tails, you can take the outcomes like this, like a sides. So and instead of you passing, I can do like this. Means liking a generic code. Now you see here, every time when you're doing, how many times it is coming like that. Instead of just printing the outcomes, I can tell like this. Hey, after executing for these many number of times, how many times head, how many times so and so. So if it is a perfect algorithm, then it should give like 50% exactly. But there is no perfect algorithm, so that's why it will be slightly around. So hope you understood now how to work on these random numbers. So now a small assignment for you, and with this I want to stop. The assignment is that you were given some random first names and last names. So maybe like I am giving some random first names and last names. Now with this random first names and last names, you need to create a random number generators. So create the random numbers from it. So it means like your function should be in such a way that it should take the first name, last name, second names, and like how many values you want, and it should generate. So give a try how to do that. So if say like I am passing like this, say names of like this, then it should generate 5 names and I should get the output. So write this code. Okay. If you have a scenario where you want to generate the random words, how to do that? Means you have a typical list. From a list, if you want one value, you can pass using random. So import random. In random, so we need to take a random dot sample. You want a sample. If we want more than one, we can go for sample. But when you create a name, you want only one, right? So we can do a choice of the first names. So you have passed the first names, you have passed the last names, you are asking 5 values. So I can say like, so first name is equal to something. Similarly, last name is equal to, in the given values, random dot choice of the second. If I pass, I will get a second name. Now how many I need to get like this? I need to get these many values. So these many values means I need to do for underscore in range of x. Why underscore? Because so range will generate values from 0 to that value. But I don't want that values, but only these things. So in real time, I need to create one name. So name is equal to, so f string of, I can take first name and last name. So I can take a first name followed by a last name, lst name. So like that I generated a name. So from these things, I need to take overall, means like names is equal to empty list. So what are the name I generated? I can add to it. Names dot append of name. So this is how we do. And finally, we return the names. So like this, we have passed all the values and we got it. So maybe like you can, if you don't want X, you can say like count. So you can take the count and pass on that count. So like this, you generated all the names. So, and you are using it inside. So generally it's not a good practice to use the same names outside and inside. Means that the same variable should not be used. It's a best practice. So I write like an underscore. So here also an underscore, and here also an underscore. So now fine. So it works perfectly. And also Pipette says that before a function, there should be at least 2 empty lines. So like that it works. So now if I execute this program, how do I execute means I need to navigate to this directory. So cd, if I navigate to that, Python 04 so and so. So I generated some 5 values. So similarly, if I execute again, I'm generating another 5 values. I'm generating another 5 values. I'm generating another 5 values. So like this, I could generate the names for different people. Now a small slide suggestion means like you can modify this program by slightly adding one more thing. You have created the names. This is fine. But for these names, these are like gender neutral. You just give. Maybe like you take some male names and male female names. Of course, last name will be the same for everyone. So, but the names will be different, right? So like that, take an assignment to do that. So I repeat again. So I have generated this. Now you take a data set of female first names because last names will be same for both. Now you ask create another function. In that function, you take the genders also. So you need to create a gender. If they pass like female, you need to create female. If they pass male, that much male. So like that, you need to create. So this is a assignment. Give it a try. And also one more thing. Sometimes there could be a random possibility that the values you are generating can be the same, right? Sometimes the combinations will be same. Though you are asking for random unique values, it may not be the same thing. In those cases, instead of going for a for loop, we can go for a range of a while loop. So how we need to do is like, so sometimes like what? The same name can be repeated. Very fine options, but you can get. In those cases, you can do like a while loop. So while, so length of underscore names, so is less than or equal to the count. So means less than that count. So every time you take and you append the values to this. Now what I do, I append to this. So instead of appending, okay, is less than. So is less than so and so. Instead of appending, what I will do better is I will take like a set because I want unique values. So I will do like a add. Now we see what happens. If a value came again, then in that case, you need not worry. So while loop means what? Till that count is increased. So it will never stop. So even if there are duplicates also, it can address it. So like this, we can address this problem. So hope it's fine. Next, similarly, you can work on different things. Maybe like, the most common usage of the random things is people do for creating their own random password generations. So the password generation means there is no proper way. You can create password on your own way. Means like say, I have created one alphabets list. So I gave like A to Z, some special characters like that. If I need to generate a random value, so maybe like I want a password of particular length. Maybe like I can take one password length also, like a fixed. Now I need to generate my password. So first, there is no proper way that you should generate like this. So though it is not a good practice to use random for security related, but just for explaining, I'm doing. I assume that my password is this thing. Now I need to generate a unique password, so of a particular length. So don't you think that I can use random dot, so sample of, so I can give these alphabets, and what are the password length? If I give, so my password is equal to like this, I can get right. If I ask here to print, so my password, if I say clear, and Python 05, did you notice? You got like a list of values. It is trying to give those many values of it. So, but like, did you see that? Is there any repetition? No. The beauty of sample is that what are the values it is pulling, it will be unique enough. So that is one advantage. So, but like you got a list of strings. As you got a list of strings, you can combine them together. So when you got a list of strings, you can use a delimiter dot join of this one. Now you see in this case, if you run it again, you got a unique password of this length. Means you have generated your own password in your own way. So but like you can generate it in a different way also. Maybe like someone else can create their own password in a different scenario. This is one way of creating. So in another way, see here. So here, so they are taking like a range of this password length. Those many times it is looping. Each time they're doing a random.ran length of rand range of this thing, and they're appending to it. So finally, so they're asking, hey, what is my password? My password. So this is also one way of generating password. So if you see now, so this is one kind of password. This is another kind of password. Means there is no one way to do it. You can take your own options. So I have given like couple of other options also, in which like people can create the passwords, but these are not limited. Generally, everyone so write their own password generating algorithms. So if I do like this, you can see different results. So like this, we can do whatever we are comfortable with. And also when you're generating a password, so if you remember any of the password resets and for your company password resets, etc., they will give some criteria that like a password should be of a particular length, which should have these many characters like that. So if you want to make more generic enough, I can give one more option for password generation. Basically, the data set, if it is big enough, you can do a lot of things. To have a bigger data set, so I am giving you one option. There is a string module. String module, when we're working with strings, I told you, if you want like alphabets, smaller, upper, like that, ask ASCII letters if you ask, and digits you ask, punctuations if you ask. If I ask, I get like all things. So 6, if you see, I got all the alphabets, capital and lower, and digits I got everything. And similarly, punctuations also I got everything. So this is how it works. Now, if I want a character set, now don't you think that if I add all these things, I get like a much bigger data set? So if I join all of them, I can get a much bigger data set. So now within these data sets, if I ask for some random value, so see here how I'm doing. I am doing a rand range. So maybe like, I am taking that. So from random import, this is like a exclusive import. So selective imports, I meant to say. But be careful whenever you're doing a selective imports. You should not create a variable with that name. And similarly, randint I want to use. So instead of doing random, like this. Now in this case, if I generate, did you see I generated a password of particular thing? I gave a rand range of particular limit. So that's why it is looping that much time and giving it. Similarly, I have a bigger data set means I can generate password in different ways. So similarly, I am passing the same, instead of randint, I am using rand range. Rand range means what? It will first generate a random range, and from that it will take something that we need. So like that also I generated. So what finally I want to tell is that maybe like I can do one more way, where like this, where I want to take a random dot sample and pass to all. So means like there is no one specific way of creating. So whatever way it comforts to you, because like mostly the passwords will be of a secret thing, right? So no one should be aware of what you're doing. But there are much more the other things to do with the random module, not just these things. Similarly, secrets module is there for working if you want to more work with the secrets things. So like this.